Welcome to the show, Gearheads. We have a new Formula One championship leader. Oscar Piastri wins the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix and for the first time ever is leading the Formula One championships, the Australian.
And it doesn't matter what sport it is, what game it is. Once you get a championship lead, psychologically, the impetus is with you. 10 points is all it is, but a massive day for Piastri. But also, good save by Norris. I said coming in after qualifying that tomorrow was going to be make or break, potentially, for his season. And he's done the best of it, going from 10th to getting just off the podium.
Yeah.
Hard to believe. First Australian to lead the Drivers' Championship since Mark Webber in 2010.
Amazing.
That's a long time.
That
folks.
is. I'm glad you confirmed
and so many
that.
Talented Australians. Huh?
I said in the studio, they said 2010. I said, wait a minute, that's Mark Webber. It's got to be. I didn't know.
Yeah, Ricardo never led.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, that is crazy. And of course, this is Piastri's third win out of 5. I said it out loud, and Jonathan was like, no, that can't be. And I was like, I think it is. Yeah.
Yep. And also, I was
all
saying,
I could think of during the race was 3 wins over this field. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also I brought up the stat from last year that last year Lando outqualified Piastri 20 to 4. 20 to 4.
Yeah.
So, things have changed dramatically within that team, and I don't know whether it is the car and Lando is really clearly struggling with something. I mean, that mistake was a bit of a outlier in qualifying, and he raced as hard as we expected him to. But it doesn't matter. The championship has changed, and Piastri's now leading.
Yeah. It's kind of fun to think about what the race would have been like if Lando had qualified on the first or second rows, as he's expected to. We saw several teams, swapping driver positions now and then in the race. And Lando and Oscar had been able to go head to head. Well, we will see them go head to head, I predict.
Yeah, I'm still worried about Lando. I know he did a great job of coming back, and look at what this has done to the standings now. By the way, Oscar Piastri, like we said, is our new leading the championship, new leader with 99 points. 10 points back is now Lando Norris, and 2 points back of him is Max Verstappen, and then down to Russell. Leclerc's move made a little bit of ground, I guess, 47 points.
Yeah, but Leclerc needs double handfuls of points from where he is right now.
Yeah, that's right.
He needs big points.
He's basically
not
half.
mid-pack points.
Yeah, he's half of Piastri. Yep. But so we have a shuffle at the top. But this was not as exciting as I thought it might be. This race.
No, I was disappointed in that. It was Sam Bird on BBC said it was intriguing, and he's right. It was intriguing because there was jeopardy to be had, and you're always sort of like, can he, and you knew it would come down to something close at the end, which it kind of did. But we didn't have a pass for the lead except for the turn 1, which was given a 5-second penalty.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that because that was a huge part of everything today. Was that turn 1. And Jonathan, you called it right off the bat.
Yeah, because it's a Verstappen thing, and he gets all petulant about it and won't do the press conference at the end, or feels like he's been hard done by again. But the truth is that is Max. He basically
describe in case they missed it.
Okay, so what happened was Piastri got the advantage. They're coming into the first corner, but
great start by Piastri.
Piastri's on the race line. He's got his nose in front. And Max does what he always does. He goes into the corner, then lets off the brakes, right? So that he then is at the apex.
At the lead in the apex, yeah.
Or effectively, he's ahead. But then there's no road left. And so then he kind of or insinuates he's coming back onto the track. But of course, Oscar's there because he wasn't ahead of him before that moment. So he has no choice but to get rode off. And then he goes, he pushed me off. So I hate to say it, but it's an old trick.
It's clever. It is clever. And Martin Brundle on the Sky Show said, well, this is kind of crazy because they did not whack him and make him give the position back.
I said that immediately too.
Yeah. Going off track.
Yeah.
I mean, did he or didn't he?
But the penalty should be he gives the place back, and we were under safety, so it would have been an
under
easy
safety car. He could have done it without
because
it.
Clean air is what you want at a street circuit, and that's what he got given.
Yeah, that was Brundle's point. He did it or he didn't do it. Don't give me this, well, you're going to pay a 5-second penalty. That doesn't accomplish anything.
No, I agree.
Yeah. And at
Well,
the beginning, they had that crash with Gasly and Tsunoda. And that, Jonathan, you
Yeah,
said
that
it
was
looked
sad.
like Tsunoda.
Yes, and it was a racing incident, no question. Unfortunately, he got his left front in Gasly's right rear.
Other way.
Sorry,
Right
other way
front
around.
and
Yeah.
left rear.
Sorry, yeah.
Right.
And that's what
Mhm.
led to the accident. But it was just, it
Yeah.
was circumstances of the start of a race. You can't really blame Tsunoda. He
Yeah.
didn't move or make it wasn't aggressive.
It was
in any way.
interesting when Tsunoda rocketed back to the pits. I mean, he was flying and he gets to the pits. And as far as we could tell from the pictures, the team decided, looking at the rear wing, that he could not continue. I thought, well, if the rear wing was in tenuous shape, then he really took it upon himself to risk it all, getting back to the pits as quickly as he did.
Yeah. And so let's just run down how this race ended. Piastri with the win, of course, for Max, followed by Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc in third, Lando Norris in fourth, George Russell in fifth, followed by his teammate Antonelli in sixth, Lewis Hamilton in seventh, and the other Ferrari, Carlos Sainz eighth, Alex Albon ninth, Isaac Hadjar in the points at 10th, and followed by Alonso, Lawson, Behrman, Ocon, Hulkenberg, Stroll, Doohan, Bortoletto, and of course, Tsunoda and Gasly didn't finish after that crash. There's definitely some interesting storylines brewing here because, for one, we talked about Williams with double points. They've certainly now passed Haas for that.
Yes, that didn't last long, did it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, we said it
Yeah.
last week. Enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah, no kidding. Nah, it's good. It's good, healthy battles. I mean, we're only 5 rounds into a long way to
exactly.
go yet.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, team standings. See if they've updated. No, they haven't updated them yet. But yes, Haas will definitely move from fifth and Williams into their place. And looking at the rest of the rundown here, so that's a good story with the Williams passing Haas. What about? I'm just going to go back up a little bit, Jonathan. What about George Russell's race? I mean, he ended up with those tires trouble at the end there, finishing fifth again every single race, top 5 or higher.
Yeah, I mean, again, we continue. His start of the season is definitely very sensational, but I was expecting him to push a bit more, and I thought they had a better car than they perhaps did in the end.
The balance wasn't quite right because the front left tire was destroyed.
Yeah, he was complaining about it. Yeah.
He was worried about it making the last lap and a half.
Yeah, whereas Norris, it seemingly could go out forever on that hard tire.
Yeah, that brings up another subject, is that the gaps. I mean, Russell, okay, he was right there trying to chase down Norris. He winds up, do the math, Bob. 20 seconds or more behind him. Okay, he slowed down. He wasn't threatened. Yeah. And then behind him, Antonelli, another 7 seconds back. Hamilton, another 5 behind him. And then this huge gap, half a minute to Sainz and Albon. There was never more clear who the big 4 teams are, but there were some huge gaps there at the end.
Yep. Antonelli with another strong finish.
I'll say one thing, he's keeping it clean.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
You talk about a track that can catch you out, and we saw it happen to Tsunoda and to Norris. Even in race trim, the concentration for that long in that heat, really impressed with Antonelli and Hadjar.
That's true. More points for Hadjar again too, but Antonelli, I feel like he's keeping it clean, right? But we know he's blazing fast, so he's not overly pushing it, right? Because he's keeping it clean. No telling how fast he could be battling.
I mean, do you remember we used to joke about George Russell being Mr. Saturday?
Yeah.
Because he was doing things with the Williams that shouldn't be getting it as far up the field that he was. And now Antonelli's doing a similar job in a weird way in being very clean at 18, and that is sort of beyond his years, really.
You guys think that he could be battling Russell for these? Because Russell's outperformed him for the most part this year, and but the progression is what I'm thinking.
I think if they keep the team together, which I think they will, because it's a winning combo, I think 26 will be really interesting because Antonelli will take it to Russell within the team.
Yeah, it'll be a clean sheet of paper season for everybody. So it'll be interesting to see how many of those, ostensible driver number one, number two relationships last. The key thing about Antonelli, and I know I jumped on the team when they let him go out at Monza and drive like a lunatic, and he put it in the wall. He is the real deal. Clearly the top rookie in a good car. But boy, that's a good driver lineup for Mercedes going forward. And keep in mind, both guys are on 1 year deal.
That's right.
Both guys are up at the end of the year in terms of their contracts.
Good point.
Yep. And that could be get really interesting, obviously, with Max Verstappen and that mix being discussed. But in today's race also, and we talked about the Williams, the strategy there where Carlos Sainz was slowing down to keep Albon in
clever.
the DRS window. That was
that's a smart move by a team using the rules, using some nous to say that Albon was in trouble and he needed to get further up the road to get him out of his air and make him not have DRS. And that's why Sainz dropped back to give him a chance to get DRS, which would therefore point him forward. So, it's good stuff.
And Bob, did you see, speaking of drivers slowing down, did you see Lewis Hamilton doing that, slowing down? Because it was about laps 12, 13 when he and Lando were swapping back and forth the lead. And
he forced him to do it one time.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Hamilton slowed down because he knew the spot was, he would immediately be able to take the position back.
Well, that's exactly what Hamilton and Verstappen did back in 2021 at Abu Dhabi. They kept, let the other guy cross first and then immediately jump on him. It was a brilliant bit of driving. I'm surprised Lando didn't twig on to what was happening sooner than he did.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, Jonathan, what do you think about Hamilton's job? We're 5 races in. I mean, he's still, erasing the muscle memory and laying down a new circuit.
A lot of people are coming at me about Hamilton not where he used to be and losing his touch and getting old, and I'm not having it yet. In that I just don't. I want to give him. He's a smart old fox.
Get off my lawn.
Get off my bloody lawn. But no, he's a smart old fox. His pace. I was watching his lap times. His pace was as good as Verstappen's today.
Towards the end, especially
towards the end. I think, and Leclerc's position, that was as good as they could have done today. So I don't think Hamilton's. Yep. I mean, this is what I expected from Hamilton at this stage.
Okay, I would not.
I'll tell you what.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Well, Ferrari gave their guys a big boost today. Their pit stops were immaculate. 2.1 and 2.0 pit stops for the two Ferrari drivers. That's pretty impressive.
I don't know if we've seen a 2 flat this year. I know, that we had the rules changed a few years ago. We've rarely seen them below 2 seconds. And absolutely.
And again, and Red Bull was not quite on their game, which helped Piastri to undercut Verstappen for the race lead.
Yeah, that undercut you're talking about, that pit stop from Max was 8.3, including the 5-second delay. So
right. Yeah. So you subtract the 5 seconds,
3.3.
and it's a 3.3 second pit stop, which is not ideal.
Yeah. That's a full second off, really, where they ought to be. They ought to be in low to mid 2s, just on an average, North.
So we don't think they've solved the problem from last week, then.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, I didn't see any problems with the red lights and the yellow lights.
But what I'm getting at is that their proficiency was so high before, and it doesn't seem to be as high anymore.
Yeah. I wonder if they switch personnel and they're still getting used to their jobs or whatever it is. They need to practice.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting just looking through my notes. So George Russell, we talked about him complaining about his tires, but he talked about is the band opening? In other words, is it growing? Is that what he meant? Is it just getting wider? Or was he actually seeing into the tire? I didn't get a chance to look closely, but I thought that was an interesting radio call from him. I don't know how severe that was.
They know.
Yeah.
A million years ago at, I believe it was the Nürburgring in German Grand Prix, Kimi Räikkönen was in the McLaren, and I was working with Hobbs and Matchett, and we were watching the onboard on Kimi's car. And I happened to notice that black stripe, that George was talking about, developing around the outside. That is a warning. You don't have much life left in this tire, maybe not even a lap. And I remember saying, look at that right front, look at that right front. And just as I said it, it shredded. And that was Kimi's race.
Yep. Bob, how'd you like Max's post-race interview? Did you get to catch that as we were getting on air?
Oh, was there one? I thought he said hello to David Coulthard and goodbye in about that length of time.
Yeah, you did see
I'll keep this short.
It was very Stroll-esque.
I just want to thank the fans.
Also,
I wonder, and keep in mind, David Coulthard's a member of the Red Bull family. So, if personal connection mattered, Max just blew him off, basically.
A couple of team radios that I liked. The very end, when Piastri crossed the finish line, he said, "Woohoo!"
Yeah,
and I was like, it was like as emotional as Piastri gets, and it almost sounded like to me, like he was doing it because he was supposed to be making a celebration. I guess I'm supposed to be celebrating here, so he just kind of went, "Woohoo!" and that was it.
Got to thank the team.
It's a bit metronomic.
Well, then he gets out of the car. When he was talking with Coulthard, I thought all of a sudden we heard a new Piastri. He was clever. He had two jokes. One was he was asked, "What are you going to do?" He said, "I need a couch."
Yeah, that was good.
The other one was what he said. Our biggest upgrade was the drink system.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, I think somebody was telling him, "Hey, man, you need to humanize it up a little bit."
Weber's advising him on the humor side as well.
Mark Webber, yeah. What'd you say, Bob?
I said, get a writer.
Yeah.
Work up some jokes.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of team radio, did you guys like the new use of the word lovely?
Yes.
From Max Verstappen at the beginning when he got the penalty?
With an F word in front of it, yeah.
That
was pointed at one particular board of people.
Yeah. Effing lovely was his phrase, yes.
Yeah.
I haven't heard lovely used in that from Max yet.
But, honestly, he really does need to look in the mirror. And I know, I hate to say it, but I'm almost 100% certain that what I described is the way he does that. Brundle agreed with me.
The way he goes into the corner.
I agree with Brundle. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But
I take the other way around.
But it's come on. We've been watching Verstappen do this so many times, from Austin to here to he admitted it when pushed into a corner. He admitted that the rules are the rules, and he takes advantage of them.
Bob, do you think that that he's still doing this because they haven't been as hard in enforcing that rule?
Well, that's an interesting question. How do you punish? It sounds like he's talking like a Formula One engineer. The rules tell you what you cannot do, but they don't tell you what you can do. And Max obviously spends a lot of time thinking about these things. If they do occur to him naturally, then he's even smarter than I thought he was. But yeah, he's looking for everything, as and I keep hearing myself repeat this, as Senna used to do, as Schumacher used to do. And if they do something you think is egregious, the rules makers pass a rule, actually name it after the driver, say, okay, you can't do this, because you can't write a rule that covers every situation. So you have to decide, is it good or bad? And if so, deal with it.
Yeah, and by the way, I have huge admiration for somebody that has the nous to look at the rules. Sure. I mean, it doesn't matter the sport. If you could find an advantage, whether, whatever it might be, however small. I mean, the guys that watch the start lights, I was always interested to see who does that at other races, because you're judging what it's going to be like for yours. The guys that look up at the wind, it sounds silly, but a crosswind at the wrong time under braking can put you off and send you sailing.
Absolutely.
So those are the guys I always look at.
Margins are.
Marc Marquez the other week on the grid at Austin jumped off his bike because he decided last second, but he tried to fool the whole grid and it caused chaos. Yeah. But again, you can't take you got to take your hat off to him.
Yeah. Well, it's,
all right, guys.
Like Alonso. Oops.
Yeah. Yep. Excuse me, Bob. We got to get a quick break in. We'll be back right after these messages. All right, live on the YouTubes.
Oh, it's all happening on the YouTubes. I've been following it.
Wow, there's all sorts of. I got to catch up here, man. What's happening?
Yeah, they were agreeing with me about
TW. I'm still awake.
Dave Lawrence is agreeing with me about
Where you been,
Hamilton.
Dave? Dave's
Yeah.
back in.
Well, he was waiting for me to say something amazingly erudite and intellectually brilliant, and so he's popped in. But no, I was talking about Hamilton. Not Hamilton will have his day. And one comment was that McLaren are going down the same old road of letting their two jousters joust, and then they'll get shot in the foot because of it, as they have done over the years with Alonso and Hamilton, and with Prost and Senna, etc.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, David Lawrence also said Piastri the man to beat. Yeah, I think that's no doubt right now. And he sounds and feels like the man to beat too. His attitude, his radio, his comments, and everything. What else? Let's see. Andy P. Ferrari pace definitely improving. Yeah. Melbourne and Suzuka go differently. Could have been talking Piastri. Yeah. David Lawrence, if Melbourne and Suzuki go different, we could have easily been talking Piastri undefeated. Yeah, Melbourne for sure.
Yeah, he hasn't really put a foot wrong, has he?
Yep. Andy P said Oscar did get mad at the back markers in his way. That was the loudest I've ever hit him in the. Yeah, I did hear that. Max said the same thing.
Well, he was breathing hard at that point too. I think he was a little exasperated.
Well, you heard him after.
And he knew what was at stake.
Yeah, but you heard him say this was the hardest race he's ever done.
Yeah, physically,
physically, yep. Yeah. What else? Let's see. Yeah, I don't think it's going to change how Max races. Certainly not enough to consequence to do that, says Andy P. And my question a while ago. Yep. Ryan Goldner.
The larger question. No.
All right, here we go. I welcome Gearheads. Oscar Piastri winning the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix and taking the championship lead for the first time. It's Jon Massengale, Jonathan Green, Bob Varsha with you. Chris Medland going to be joining us soon. Jonathan Green, what do you think?
I've been thinking about this in the break and reading what the guys are saying online as well. I wonder if Red Bull, I'm gonna sort of suggest something. Red Bull could easily have worked out that the FIA would have jumped all over them for that move, right? Because it was iffy, right?
Yeah.
At turn one.
Saying they're playing chess on a 3D level here?
Could be 5D. But why didn't his team say, Max, we've looked at it. We don't want a 5-second penalty. Give the place back. We'll get him under DRS. Because that would have avoided the 5 seconds. They had time to think about it because they were under safety and it was going to take at least 5 minutes. So you've got the time to discuss it. It's not a case of we're doing it on the fly in a race. So he could easily have literally swapped places, or at least dialed up the stewards and said, we know you're looking at this, so we're going to do this because that's within their right. And that would have put them right behind Piastri for the restart and 2 DRS zones away from overtaking him again.
Sound reasonable, Bob? What do you think?
Well, absolutely. 2 possibilities. One, as he said before the race, Max was genuinely concerned that if he got behind the McLarens, he wouldn't be able to keep up with them. And the other was, the old expression, old habits die hard. Max, the race driver, thought, I've got this trick where I take my foot off the gas pedal, so I'm suddenly ahead of the guy who's trying to pass me, and then I go 4 off, and whatever happens, happens. Yeah, it's just behavior that the rules makers have to take a look at.
Yep, and I want to see how people. You know what? Let's open up the phone lines and see how people are feeling about this. 512-643-5483. Want to hear your opinion on what Max Verstappen did today and has done before, like we were saying. 512-643-5483. All right, let's look at the rest of the race here, Greeny. We haven't talked about beyond the top 10 too much here.
Okay.
We talked about Williams at 8 and 9. But Isaac Hadjar for RB.
Yeah, again, another point for RB,
A point.
and a faultless drive. He's growing in confidence. I watched him interviewed this weekend on Sky, and there's no question that his confidence was obviously not by what happened in Australia, but he's bounced back really well. And if we've been talking about mental acuity and mental strength, and Norris lacking confidence, well, Hadjar is all over it. I see, the sort of refreshing, freedom of a kid that just wants to go racing. I thought it was really interesting. All the guys that are new driving, even Jack Crawford, I just want to drive again.
Yeah,
it's the exuberance, the youth
of
exuberance of youth. Love it.
Yeah, and he's up to 14th. And Bob, what did you think about his teammate, Liam Lawson here? Where did he finish? He finished 2 behind him in 12th.
Yeah, well, I think it's another step forward for Lawson. He had a big psychological setback when Red Bull gave him the heave-ho after 2 races. But he's in the car. I think he's generally had a good weekend. Didn't qualify great. Obviously, raced well, but not great enough to score points. But at least he was caught smiling now and then. I think his head is back in the right place. And I think he's going to be even better. We haven't seen the best of Liam Lawson yet.
No, he
has to control his temper. As we saw at the end of last year, he has a temper. Yeah, I think he'll be okay.
Yeah, I think so too. By the way, Ryan Goldner, I want to credit for that RB idea. That's where I read it. And then I started thinking about it over the break and was like, you know what? That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
So well done, mate.
Yeah.
And
somebody
Alonso,
else made a point. Go ahead.
I was just saying, Alonso in between the 2 RBs there in 11th. Excuse me. What were you gonna say, Bob?
Well, Joe in Oyster Bay comments on YouTube that incident where was it Stroll that said that there's a light on the balcony of a trackside thing, and it looks like a red flag. And the first thing I thought of was, tell me somebody's got a laser pointer up in a balcony being a dooflotch. But the TV guys never investigated it. They never had a shot of where this red light was coming from.
Red light, you say? Maybe he's been to a district in Amsterdam, and that's what upset him.
Or first thing that popped in my head was Sting. You don't have to put on the red light.
That's kind of my inference too.
So wait a minute. Let's back up. Let's back up just a minute, Bob. I'm writing this down. Did you say dooflotch? How do you spell that?
Dooflotch.
He said he was being a dooflotch.
That's a combo. That's what 70-year-olds and 15-year-olds say. That's a combo word.
That comes from the Old English.
Yeah, it's from the Canterbury Tales.
Right, exactly. You'll have to go read Chaucer and figure out what it means.
All right, we'll get some T-shirts made. Dooflotch.
Dooflotch. It's when you actually put your foot in a cow patty and slip over. That's a dooflotch.
I've now reached immortality. That's all. Good night, folks.
Good night.
I'll be here.
Drop the mic.
Tip your waitress. All right. Ollie Behrman and his teammate Esteban Ocon, 13th and 14th. Honestly,
disappointment.
Consider where the rest of the weekend, it kind of finished.
Yes, they moved up the board for sure. They moved up the board. But I know that the sort of, listening to Io last week with us, the confidence and the bounce in his step was there. And I hope it doesn't take anything away. They've got 2 weeks till Miami. Maybe there'll be upgrades. I don't know. It's hard to work out how a team like Haas goes about 25, 26. They've only got one pot.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. Well, the way I see it, Haas and Sauber and Ferrari, all using Ferrari power units and other Ferrari accoutrement, and they were all complaining about not having pace. So I wonder if some of this is the result of what's going on in Maranello. I think they really they're just not as quick as they need to be. I mean, the works guys would tell you that. I think just as soon as the Haas and the Sauber guys, but they are remarkably silent on the subject, which is customary, I guess, for a customer team. You're not going to bite the hand that feeds you by saying, well, this engine hybrid situation just isn't getting us where we want to be.
Yeah. Continuing on down Hulkenberg and behind the two Haas and down a lap, by the way. Hulkenberg, Stroll, Doohan, and Bortoleto are the rest of the ones that finished all down a lap.
Yeah.
I can't say that I saw much of any of those guys.
I do wonder what kind. I mean, for Bortoleto, it's great, but I mean, what is Hulkenberg learning for the future with the way this team is set up? I mean, Sauber are nowhere is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And everybody's, but they're going to be Audi next year. Yeah, but they need to be bringing data to Audi, which they're not going to get from anywhere else. And, there's nothing they can do. They were at the back last year, too. So.
They do have points this year, earlier than, did they get a point last year? Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean.
I think Zhou Guanyu.
Yeah, I think right towards the end. That's what I remember.
Point or two. But, we're hearing rumors that Audi is not making much progress on their new power unit. So, could be a long winter and summer.
Yeah, I'm beginning to wonder whether having the stable Mercedes, which how many teams will have? Alpine will have next year. Williams will have next year. And Mercedes will have, obviously.
And McLaren.
And McLaren. No, McLaren will have a Honda.
I thought Honda was going.
Sorry, what am I talking about? Yes.
Aston.
Yes,
what are
Aston.
You talking
what you talking about, Willis?
What you talking about, Willis? Yes, exactly. Aston Martin will have Honda, and McLaren will have Mercedes. So Mercedes is definitely the dominant engine now. You'll still have the two teams with Ferrari, and obviously Alpine will drop out. But I still don't. And we don't really know what the heck the powertrain of Red Bull will come out of. And so, as you say, Bob, I think there's a question mark over what the Ford/Red Bull powertrain will come out like, whether the transition to Honda to Aston Martin will come out smelling roses, because you'd think it should, but when you look at Aston Martin's, form right now, it's not great.
Well, and just going back to Audi, they're struggling, and as a car manufacturer, it kind of just doesn't. It feels totally out of whack with them right now. They were quick to vote against any sort of engine change, V8, V10, whatever. But they're struggling out selling cars on the street. I don't know.
Porsche would have been the better product from the VW, family.
Yes, you could argue that, but you could also argue that Porsche, they're dominating everything else
they're doing
doing
so well everywhere.
They don't need to go to Formula One, honestly.
No, that's a good point. Yep, it's a very good point. And in fact, they're known for their sports car.
What's that, Bob?
Mm-hmm. They need leadership at Audi.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a really good point. That may be the thing that they're lacking, because you're right. They're rudderless. It feels rudderless, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. It does.
Yeah. So I don't know what's going to happen, how that's going to go, but it doesn't feel good at Audi right now.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Aston Martin, who I don't think are selling a lot of cars.
They were.
Well, they were, but the racing team moved from they were using the Mercedes wind tunnel. Now, Lawrence Stroll has sunk hundreds of millions of dollars into the state-of-the-art facility, including the latest and greatest in wind tunnels. They have started using that, it is reported. And I'm wondering if they're having a little bit of the same problem that Red Bull has.
Yeah.
In other words, what you see on the track is not correlating with what they're seeing in the wind tunnel.
Yeah, I thought that was a really telling comment by Red Bull, because I was thinking exactly that when Red Bull said, it was Christain Horner on last weekend that said, our figures aren't correlating. And I was like, well, hang on a minute. I thought the wind tunnel was this panacea of all things great. And if you had a wind tunnel, then you were going to be streets ahead of everybody else because you had your own data.
Well,
but
you need a NUI to go with your wind tunnel.
Yeah,
I think is the key.
A tall, large, bald-haired man from England.
What, Bob?
It's in the box.
It's all those damn algorithms. It's math. Math screws up everything.
I got some math for you right here. I was looking through the updated driver standings, and the one that jumps out at me at the most are the Aston Martin drivers, because Alonso has a goose egg, and Lance Stroll has 8 points scored twice.
I know.
He had a P6 in Australia, if you recall, in the rain.
Yeah.
And then he had 2 points at a P9 in China. So he's killing his teammate.
One of our listeners chimed in with when is Honda going to convince Lance Stroll that Lawrence Stroll that Lance has been done and Yuki should be in the seat with Honda at Aston Martin. And you can see some credence to that, to be honest.
Yeah, but he's killing his teammate. He's outscoring him 8 points to 0. So, or 10 points.
Fernando could make that up in one race. And yet Fernando said this weekend, I think we're out of ideas. We just don't know what to do with this car. And I just mentioned all those expenditures on the facilities. Keep in mind, they've got the spending cap to deal with. This year's car sucks, so let's put more resources toward next year's car. It's going to be in a long 2025 for these guys, but between Adrian Newey and the arrival of Honda and a whole new set of rules, maybe Aston Martin comes out of the barn like a bullet next year, or maybe not.
Or maybe if they do, Lance Stroll they'd be the favorite for the championship, because Alonso's going to be 40.
Yeah, we told the story last week. Jonathan and I heard from a team member who said,
right.
Look, we just haven't given Fernando and Lance a good car, and it's not fair to judge them until they have a good car.
Or by their interviews. All right, guys, let's get a quick break in. You're listening to Speed City F1, back after this break. All right, we're still live on YouTube. I haven't taken a look in a minute here. Let's see what's going on. Whoa, still lots of comments. Love it, love it. Good job, guys.
Yeah. Tell your friends.
Give us some likes. TW's always banging that drum. Give us some likes, everybody. That helps us.
When do we get a prize? How many likes do we need to get?
Oh yeah, man, we got this cool thing to give away. They're actually really cool.
They are nice. No, I'll go with that.
We got Andy P got one. Jonathan Green called in and got one. And
I reached across the table.
So I guess we got one more to give away. You should open it up and show them on the camera, Jonathan. It's pretty cool stuff.
It is. I put it away. I've hidden it.
Bill Ricker, was that 2 rookies in the points or more? We'll have to go back and look, Bill. FIA is inconsistent on pit line crossing. Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah. Show them those, like all the stuff inside too. It was cool. David Lawrence, I still don't know why Audi chose to go Formula 1. Yeah, there you go, David.
There you go.
It's not exactly what I was saying, but that's a better way to say it, actually. Yeah, should have stayed in sports car racing. Had a prominent LMDH program.
I mean, the trouble is now for Audi, it's so bulletproof in hypercar now and so competitive that if Audi did come in, it would take them 5 years to get up to speed.
Hey, you guys got your tickets to Lone Star Le Mans? That's going to be awesome. Jonathan and I will be on the microphones.
We will be on the microphones and looking forward to that.
And we're trying to plan something for before, like the Wednesday or the Thursday or something, some sort of event. No promises, but I have actually called several different venues.
Could be barbecue at my house.
Gosh, I went to Rally Ready.
Yeah.
Since we're off XM, I can say whatever I want. Rally Ready, the school out there.
Hang on. Was Jonathan offering me a bed at his house?
No.
For the Lone Star?
Well, you have to fight my dog.
All right, we're coming back. Here we go.
This is David Hobbs, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Welcome back. David Hobbs bringing us back. I remember your buddy, Bob. I remember where we were standing when we got that little snippet from David Hobbs for some reason. We're standing right in the doorway at COTA in the media center.
Yep. We need to get more of those. We need, we've got a lot of new faces in Formula 1.
I know. We got to get Chris to get some. We'll get some. I'll try to get some in Miami because I'll be there next week.
Good job. Mm-hmm. That would be really good. And get some different phrases.
Different phrases? Okay. Mm-hmm.
Not just. But,
okay. He's got something he's going to tell me after the show, I feel like.
No, I told you last week. Different phrases.
Oh, yes. Okay. I know what you're talking about now. Yes. All right. Let's see. What do we got?
Run a contest.
Yeah.
There we go.
Run a contest and let a fan do one.
Mm-hmm. There you go. I like it.
I like that too.
Hi, I'm Andy P. Speed City's
there
biggest
you go.
listener.
They'll find out how difficult radio really is.
No,
Yes.
I'm Andy P., America's greatest McLaren fan. What did I call him? It's true.
It's true.
Biggest, I think is what I said.
Future is bright. The future is orange.
And host of Outlet
What about-
podcast. I think he's. And if that's
Got his
fine.
own podcast, yeah.
What about
let's
Corvette
see.
Mike?
Huh?
Corvette Mike, he
Was it
came on
Corvette
earlier.
Mike?
Yeah.
Corvette Mike. Yeah. We got lots of listeners
He's a
with
big
personality.
McLaren fan, isn't he?
Yep.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay.
We haven't talked about Carlos Sainz today. We did talk about how he slowed down to help his teammate, but
I think today, this weekend was a definite Carlos Sainz. Okay,
Yeah, I know where
he's
you're
in.
going.
He's in now.
team player.
Team player. The plan that they had at the beginning of the season that we would see some copacetic teammates, which we are seeing, because the job at Williams is to move the team forward together en masse. It's not about winning championships. It's not about trying to win a race and beat your teammate. Both of them are mature drivers. So unlike the Piastri-Norris tussle, where they both want to be a world champion desperately at a young age, these are two guys that realize that the car and perhaps where they are in the greater scheme of things is going to take a few years. And so today was a perfect example of Williams using every aspect of what they've got to move them forward, even if it was just two cars finishing in the points. That's good teamwork.
Speaking of good teamwork, join the Oracle team. There's a growing expense eating into your company's profits. It's your cloud computing bill. You may have gotten a deal to start, but now the spend is sky high and increasing every year. What if you could cut your cloud bill in half and improve performance at the same time? Well, if you act by May 31st, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure can help you do just that. OCI is the next generation cloud designed for every workload, where you can run any application, including AI projects, faster and more securely for less. In fact, Oracle has a special promotion where you can cut your cloud bill in half when you switch to OCI. The savings are real. On average, OCI costs 50% less for compute, 70% less for storage, and 80% less for networking. Join Modal, Skydance Animation, and today's innovative AI tech companies who've upgraded OCI and saved. Offer only for U.S. new customers with a minimum financial commitment. See if your company qualifies for half off at oracle.com/formula. That's oracle.com/formula.
Here's a question for you.
Yes.
Does Carlos Sainz, by the end of the season, get the better of Albon overall? I say yes.
Kind of feels like it, doesn't it?
It does.
The momentum right now.
But I also know Albon, quiet as he is, quietly Thai as he is, I think he will bounce back. And I think we'll see an almighty battle between the pair of them in the last 5 races because you want to finish your season on a high. And Albon, wants to remain as much of a team leader as he can. He knows the experience that Sainz brings. He doesn't want to get, he doesn't want to. And he also knows what's waiting in the background of potential drivers that could replace him, even. So he's going to push back hard.
Where do you rank them as a team, their pair of drivers?
Very high.
Yeah.
Very
That's what I was
high
thinking.
because there's just, like I said, there's a maturity there where they're on a different wavelength. They're trying to move the team forward, and that's rare. Leclerc and Hamilton, you can see that it's about one against the other. They want Ferrari to go well, but I can assure you that Hamilton's not thinking of the Constructors' Championship right now. He's thinking about number one.
Yeah.
And he's thinking about how the heck can I get on top of Charles Leclerc. Same at, obviously, Piastri and Norris. And obviously Red Bull, Tsunoda's out to save his life. So he's got to be within, inches of Verstappen whenever he can. So it's a very different pattern. And I would have said that, I just mentioned Sauber. You've got to think that Hülkenberg and Bortoleto are working that way too. So Hülkenberg's main job is to get Bortoleto up to speed. And if you like, everything's a test run for when Audi take over.
Yeah, you've got to factor in different things. Like take Mercedes, for example. You've got George Russell, who's a proven commodity. Kimi Antonelli shows a lot of potential, but he's lacking in experience. So does that make him stronger or weaker than the Ferrari lineup, to pick one? And then you mentioned Williams. Will Albon and Sainz come to blows? No, I don't think so. Sainz has already showed that he's willing to fall on his sword for the benefit of the team. I think Albon, based on speaking with him, as we've done,
Mhm.
that he would do the same. So the factor there is the car. The car gets better, team does better, and then, do their personalities become competitive? Or I suspect with James Vowles, as good as he is running that team, that won't happen.
So you know who I was disappointed for? Actually, both drivers who crashed out early, but I really was hoping to see
Gasly.
Gasly
And
and
Tsunoda.
Tsunoda. I was looking to see how Tsunoda would do at this, because he's now changing his muscle memory too, but he's getting on it fast. It feels like.
I like I said after the qualifying, first free practice, I looked at the times, and the two Red Bulls were 6th and 7th, and there was 100th of a second, and I was like, man, Helmut Marko says ridiculous things but ridiculous things to push his drivers on, man, and but he said he's got to be within 0.3, but he's there. He's there or thereabouts.
I was waiting. I didn't want to jump in because I know all you Brits always say there or thereabouts. Always.
Okay. Man.
That's a great expression. My dude.
Brilliant.
Oh, dear. Semantics.
Bob, sorry, you were actually trying to contribute something worthwhile.
Intellectual.
Yes.
I don't know. I fell off that horse in the middle of there or thereabouts. So if it comes back to me, I'll be on it.
Well, what about Gasly? He's been looking so good and qualified.
I felt for him today.
Yeah.
Nothing
My
to do with
point
him.
was going to be about Yuki. It was announced this weekend. Yuki is going to go testing in an RB19, the car 2 iterations ago.
Yeah.
So obviously Red Bull seems to think, the same way we do. And as Yuki has said, he needs time in the car. He needs to understand the car. So they need to do everything they can. And putting him in the most recent car he's allowed to test under the rules
and
is a great way to do that, I think.
Yeah, and given that we've seen this, crumble from Perez and nobody able to get onto grips with that car, the car he's going to drive is probably pointy and difficult and all of the above. Maybe not as much so, but like you said, hours in the car where you're not thinking about racing, you're not thinking about the pressure of qualifying, and you can literally just go round and round and round and maybe do 200 laps in a day, and really get an understanding. And of course, set up the car more to the way of the new car, because, just because it's an old car doesn't mean you can't stiffen up the front or tighten this or whatever.
Well, that's a great point. Under the rules, and I don't know them well enough to say, can you make the RB19 set up so it drives like the RB21 in all of its problematic ways? So
as long as you don't adjust,
steps out at the back or pushes at the front, can you do that?
Yeah, and I would have thought you could do that with rake. You could do that with the, anti-roll.
Replacing components, right?
No, you can't take components off the car and put new ones on, and you can't put different bodywork on. But like you said, you can set it up so that it's perhaps as stiff as Max has it, or whatever it might be.
We need Dave O'Neill to get on the show again and tell us that one.
Yeah, and here comes the cavalry if we have Chris Medland.
Like I'm about to say, Medland will have
Well, that's funny. I was just turning on F1 TV, and I saw only 2 of them there, and I thought, well, that means Chris is about to join us, and there he is. How are you, buddy? Hey, Chris Medland. Oh, it's Casey.
It's about Yuki Tsunoda going out to test the RB19. What are the parameters of that? What can they do to the car, perhaps to make it like the RB21 in terms of handling? And how many laps can he do? And yada, yada, yada. What are your thoughts?
So he can pretty much do as many laps as he wants that they can fit into a day. There's no restriction in that sense. They do have to inform the FIA that they're going to do the tests so they can send someone if they want to. But all they can do to make it like the RB21 will be work on setup, because you cannot use any components that have not raced on that car. So the RB19, for example, can't run a front wing that's newer. If it's got, you can play around with components on the car, but those components must be ones that you used in a race at the time the car raced.
That's what we thought.
You are pretty restricted on that front, and the tyres will not be race tyres either. They are particular tyres just for testing purposes.
But they can set up the car as close to how they would see it for Max Verstappen, because that's, let's face it, where we've got into this conundrum, and give Yuki a chance, unfettered, to feel what a car like that set up, and maybe even start with the base setup of Verstappen back then in that car, so he can get an understanding of what he's fighting for from base, from step one.
Yes, they certainly could do that, and that would give Yuki a bit of an understanding. But at the same time, I think Yuki would have a bit more of a direction he'd want to take himself, because something he was saying last night, actually, and I don't think we managed to talk about it at the time, but it was really interesting, I found out, is that Yuki feels maybe we did talk about it. I'm trying to remember how many times I've repeated this weekend. Yuki feels what Max now does, and he was learning it more this weekend, is he gets himself into a position in, say, FP2, and the car's in quite a good place. And Yuki's like, that's good. I don't really want to change that setup. I don't want to go too far away from that. But Max is playing around with everything. He's like, why is he doing that? And it's because he's making sure the car's where he wants it for where he expects the track to be in Q3. That's the only thing he's thinking about. So essentially, he's making the car harder to drive in FP2, harder to drive in FP3, harder to drive in Q1 and Q2, as long as it is at its best in Q3. And that's because Max obviously has A, the ability to handle a difficult car before that, but B, the experience to know roughly how the car will respond to these changes and how it will then perform based on what Q3 is looking like in terms of temperatures, track evolution, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So Yuki starts Q1 and the cars are fairly close on pace, and he gets excited, and then he watches it go away from him and towards Max. And he says, it's not by accident. I've seen now that everything he's doing over the weekend is building up to that moment. So in that sense, Max's setup, you've only got to be looking at a Q3 type setup at whichever track you're running at. It's not quite as simple, I don't think, as just saying that's Max's setup, because he dials it around so much to get it just in the sweet spot for that one moment of the weekend.
That's a good point. Very good point. I'll tell you what I am going to enjoy, though, as Yuki goes along, is he's so honest, so Japanese. They don't know any way of telling. When you interview them, they tell you as it is, and he is classic Japanese that way. And so when he starts unveiling the secrets like an onion, we're gonna get the true story of what's going on inside that team.
Sounds like Chris needs to chase down Yuki. All right, guys, we got to get a quick break in. When we come back, we have an interview with Zak Brown that Chris just got us in just a few minutes ago. You listen to Speed City. Back after these. All right, back on YouTube. Hey, Chris, how'd it go today, buddy?
Yeah, very well. A bit of a shame at the end there. I should have been with you a bit quicker, but it gets very messy in the TV pen. And we got to the point of the top three coming in, and we still had a few drivers left. And Oscar Piastri was making a beeline for me, and I was going to get him first up. And Kimi Antonelli was at the broadcaster next to us and finished his answer and just stepped sideways right in front of Oscar. One, completely blocked him off, which was hilarious. It's the only time Oscar got beaten today. He did find it funny. But it meant we did have to wait quite a while for Oscar to then get to everyone else by the time he came back round. So that was probably a 5-minute delay, but everything else pretty smoothly, I'd say.
Max still chatting to the Max still there chatting, sitting in an armchair chatting to the media.
Do you know what? He was pretty good, but the one thing he used this to his advantage, but he said he wasn't going to really comment on or give his opinion on turn one and what happened at the start, because he says we're not allowed to, are we, in this sport? Like, essentially I'll get penalised for criticising a steward or something. He said, we can't say negative things, so I'm just, I don't think we should talk about it.
Chris,
so that told you how he felt.
Yeah. Chris, I stuck my neck out. Tell me your take. I said, no, that's classic. Let the brakes off, Verstappen. I got the apex. Oh, you've run me off the circuit. I mean, it's time. It's a time-old treasured kind of move by him. And finally, the stewards have said, no, not this time.
Yeah, spot on. Totally agree. And to be honest, I was a bit surprised that he didn't kind of go, yeah, it was close, and I guess I was the wrong side of it or something. He won't have been able to analyze it closely, obviously, like we have, and see multiple replays from within the car with the visibility you have. Maybe he would feel he was further ahead than he was.
Have the other live ready.
He sees it back, he maybe is a little bit more firm on, I was in the right, and he'll watch it back and be like, okay, I could see that was borderline or not.
Coming back,
he's always going to take that approach, isn't he?
Yeah.
Always going to take that approach.
Yeah, I suppose so. Right, coming back.
Hi, this is Karun Chandok, and you're listening to Speed City
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Oracle Cloud Infrastructure can help you cut your cloud bill in half if you act by May 31st. See if you qualify for half off at oracle.com/formula. All right, welcome back. Chris Medland is live with us in the paddock now. And a few minutes ago, Chris, you want to set this up? You caught up with Zak Brown.
I did indeed. I had just finished interviewing all the drivers for F1 TV, and I decided that when I saw the back of a bright orange McLaren shirt, I would chase it down, and I gave them no chance to avoid me. But it was a tricky one to position, I will admit, because I couldn't quite tell whether this would be delighted because there's a win there in what was actually quite a close race, or frustrated because the gaps aren't huge and Lando didn't even get onto the podium. So here's where Zak kind of fell on that front. Zak Brown, another victory in the books for McLaren. How happy are you with that one? And maybe how concerned are you by how close Red Bull were?
Well, I'm concerned how close Red Bull is, Ferrari is. Mercedes was great in the race. Seemed like they fell off a little bit there towards the end. But, I think we've got an epic championship ahead of us. You've got, 4 cars that within 5 seconds. You had 4 cars within a tenth of a second. And that's how it's been all year. So we're going to keep pushing. Hats off to all the men and women at McLaren, especially in the garage, because they had to kind of put back together a car that looked like it was came in Legos on Saturday night, and they did a great job. Lando drove great. Oscar was a beast out there.
Yeah, let's start with Oscar. I mean, when he has a chance, he seems to take it this season. Have you seen him step up a level?
Yeah, he's, as I was just asked, how do you think he'll be now that he's leading the championship? I think he's going to be tougher, so watch out. And Lando's back. He took Saturday off, but he came back to work on Sunday, and I'm excited to go back to Miami.
I mean, what's that dynamic going to be like now? Because Lando started the season so well, but like you say, Oscar's now leading the championship. Are you going to kind of see them starting to land blows on each other?
I think it's going to yin and yang all year, and that's exciting. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing them really racing each other hard. That day will come. I know everyone's excited for that big moment, as am I, but I'm not concerned about it.
Got to get your reaction to turn 1 though on the first lap. What were you thinking in the garage watching that?
Oscar, clearly beat him off the line, got a better start, was past them before they even got to the corner, so it was definitely his corner. I think the decision was right that a penalty was required, whether they should have just gave it back or 5 second. Sometimes giving it back may have been better for him. Also would have gave us some free air, and we maybe would have been able to stretch our legs. But I think it was an appropriate call that something needed to be addressed there.
Well, just finally, you've got 4 wins from the first 5 races, but you're about to head, as you say, to Miami. How busy is life about to get for Zak Brown?
It's been busy for like 30 years, but I enjoy being busy. Next weekend is a Grand Prix weekend off, so I'm going to go to Paul Ricard and race some historics because I'm going to miss the racetrack.
And then in Miami, I know you're off to Augusta on Monday afterwards, which I'm sick with jealousy. But
that's all part of the Miami trip, which is pretty awesome. But excited to go back to Miami, being that that's kind of where this whole charge got started last year and has continued ever since.
Well done this weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's exactly right. That was Lando's first win last year.
First win last year. And it was a surprise win with a bunch of upgrades that they threw at the car. And everybody said, well, we'll see how this settles. And it settled in a win.
So the
like a charm.
McLaren lead now is 77 points. McLaren 188, Mercedes 111. That is a big lead now.
Yep.
That is a real lead.
I'd love to poll all the top folks at each team, CEOs, team principals, whatever. You got a weekend off next week. What are you going to do? And see how many of them, like Zak Brown, say, I'm going to go racing.
Yeah, very few. Very few.
That is true.
I
Yeah,
reckon
you
he's
see
the
Zak.
only one.
Go ahead, Chris.
I reckon he's the only one. I'd be amazed if anyone else was.
Yeah.
I can't think off the top of my head who else would. Although technically, he's CEO rather than team principal, so he's less busy. But he was testing classic cars like a week or 2 ago, wasn't he, as well? He spends every waking minute doing stuff like that. It's impressive, it must be said, especially because it goes hand in hand with success at the moment. We'd probably be actually using it as a stick to beat him with if things were going badly.
Yeah,
good point. Things are going well. It's a strong sign, and I think we have to sometimes give him credit that he lives his life that way and look where he's got the team.
Do you fear?
Jonathan and I both go to the reunion out at Laguna Seca every year for vintage cars, hundreds of them on site, and I guarantee every year Zak Brown will be there with a garage full of meticulously maintained classic race cars. It's just what he does.
And he drives a Williams. He drives a McLaren. He drives. He'll drive anything.
BMWs, everything. Yeah.
Yeah, he does walk the walk and talk the talk. No question about it. No question about it.
Yeah, that's the velocity.
He's there testing as well, isn't he? Early, he always goes out there and does the whole shakedowns, everything like that as well. I was actually once on my summer break doing a road trip, and then dropped in there just to watch and saw he was there testing when it was quiet the week before the whole reunion, and he was in his element. So
Chris,
he is certainly one who's so committed to his classics.
Chris, I want your take on this. I picked up on that, and it's been on our chat, if you like, from some of the listeners, which is, is Zak going to pour us into a classic McLaren fisticuffs between the two drivers again? I know this is, hackneyed kind of subject, but, I heard him say it again. Can't wait till we'll see them race against each other, and he all seems cock-a-hoop about it. But we've seen this plan go wrong with McLaren.
We have, and we've seen more, I think, when they get a little bit too involved. So I was maybe a bit critical of the way they went about the Japanese Grand Prix by not getting more involved and saying, look, we're going to get beaten here by Max Verstappen if we don't try something different. But they felt that trying something different was unfair on the drivers and wasn't going to really do anything anyway. I still think, how do you know for sure that it's not going to do anything? But that's besides the point. Because that was them not getting a race win as a result, I think they should have got involved. Other times, I think what he's saying is when they both get it right in qualifying and it's a front row lockout, which, let's be honest, only has happened in Melbourne. Is that the only time we've had that? So they've not actually had many opportunities to properly go and race hard wheel to wheel. And as a result of that, I think he's saying, when they put themselves in that position that they are both on the front row and we're just saying, right, whoever's leading at the first pit stop will get the priority and strategy, but you're fighting each other all the way, they're going to let them do it early on. And I think they need to because they're both good enough to win a title if they put it together. You've got to leave it up to the drivers to do that. And a day like today, I think the fact that Max Verstappen keeps picking up best of the rest if he doesn't win a race, Bahrain is the one that we let go on that front, will keep him in the frame. So I hope he stands by that approach and lets them race because it will keep it open.
And to play devil's advocate on my own question, he has to do it at the moment because let's just say you go, okay, as Flavio Briatore would say, you have to have a number one driver, otherwise it doesn't work. I've heard him say that, quote, end quote. And that's always been his philosophy. Now, he's not a team principal anymore, but that was his philosophy. I think Zak is in a bit of a tight corner because if he turns around and says, well, my senior driver, most experienced driver is Lando Norris, so Piastri got to help him, which is what happened last year. He'll pack his bags and be gone because he's the hottest property in town. So they've got to keep it open like that to keep both drivers.
I recall last year in Hungary, where this thing burst into the public domain when the team felt they owed it to switch drivers because of something they'd done previously. I don't remember all the details. Neither driver seemed to be happy with the whole situation. But Zak Brown stepped in. I'm sure they've had long conversations since then. And so the rules, if you will, about who's going to lead and when, may be settled at this point. And if they are, that'll really benefit them going forward, I think.
Yeah, the Hungary one was that they'd pit Norris, like Piastri was leading, and they pit Norris first to cover off a threat from behind. But that gave him an undercut that put him ahead of Piastri. But they said, it's okay, we're going to switch those positions because Piastri's kind of safe other than from we can control that.
Right.
But then Lando finds himself in the lead and is like, I don't want to give this up. I've got to, if I win this race, I can get in a title fight. So that was a tricky one that I don't think they handled very well, but I also think Lando didn't handle particularly well. The radio messages were not particularly good between the two. But you're right. I think, don't forget, both drivers have signed long-term contracts in the last, 12 to 15 months at that team. Right. They must have guarantees on both fronts that they are going to be given complete, fair, equal treatment.
Yep.
Yes.
Otherwise, I'm sure neither of them is signing that. And then they're going to invoke those clauses in those contracts if they don't get that.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris, for supplying those details about Hungary. And keep in mind, McLaren's got the ultimate leverage over their drivers. They've got the fastest car.
Yes.
Yeah.
Today, anyway.
Yeah.
We shall see. Hey, Chris.
Well, sure, but that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
Ross Braun once said when they were building the what was it? The Mercedes, I think. They were asked about, what cool drivers can you sign? He said, we need to build the fastest car. Once you do that, it's no problem picking and choosing your drivers because everybody is going to ring you up.
Yeah.
That's a very good point, actually, though, because also you guys hinted at it with the answer to Zak's final question, where he said about where this train basically started, this charge, and has continued since. But there's no guarantee that it maintains at this level because of what we saw last year, because of what we've seen McLaren do, but also others. Ferrari almost matched McLaren for development last year by the end of the season.
Yeah.
If you think of how competitive they were regularly against Red Bull. So other teams are capable of that. Mercedes have finally made a step forward. Today was actually disappointing for Mercedes, and they're still fifth and sixth. But they're close. And if they can find a bit more performance too, I think teams will throw a fair bit at it in these upcoming couple of races. Charles Leclerc mentioned his big hope actually rests on Spain, where we're going to have a change to the flexibility of the front wings. And there's going to be tests that mean all of the teams need to strengthen them. And James Vowles has said definitely everyone will need to strengthen, but at differing levels. And he thinks McLaren and Mercedes are most likely to be hurt by that. But it could still move around. We've got 24 races. We've only had 5.
Yeah, I know,
19
exactly.
is more than most seasons used to be. So there's every chance still
Yeah.
of this really turning around. And that's why McLaren, yes, right now, have the fastest car and have that upper hand. But at the same time, if you want to keep what you feel is a strong driver pairing together, and if you don't treat them well, and that spins around quickly, look at Red Bull, then you might find yourself struggling to keep hold of those talents, even if you've had great history with them.
Yep. All right, well, let's get our last break in real quick, and we'll be back after these messages. So, Chris, where are you, buddy? Are you near anybody out there?
So I've been hanging around outside Williams because I wanted to see if we get James Vowles, because I thought that was I know we got him beforehand, but
That was so funny. That was so funny.
Yeah, oh God!
You should have heard the way I set it up. I said, all right, we've got this really, we got this an amazing team principal. He's one of the smartest up and comers. And this shows his seriousness, shows the brevity of our sport. And then he throws you under the bus basically for walking in with an iPhone and a microphone.
But it worked, right? We could hear him.
Oh,
That's the
hey, listen, I'll tell you why it works.
Perfect.
I was saying while we were playing it, I was saying, I saw you in Vegas, and me and Bob have got two cameras with us, producers, APs, lights, and we're doing a 10-second hit. The relaxedness that you get from them by being just on a mic just totally takes their veneer off of pressure.
Yeah.
And it really does work.
Yeah,
Yeah,
having
it
all
does.
those weapons can be,
Intimidating.
unnerving for certain people.
Yeah, and I think it's actually helped recently as well. I've noticed when I've done interviews when we've had, a team principal in Vision or something, and they've been almost like a bit calmer, because generally, whenever I've been around doing an interview for them, they have been able to relax a bit without cameras. So hopefully it's just created this kind of subconscious feeling of like, oh, this guy's all right. He's not going to give me a hard time. So hopefully it goes that way. In fact, I am going to try and get us Christain Horner before the end of the show, but he's doing his print session now, and it's if that finishes in time before we go off air.
I thought you said he was doing his Prince session. I was like, man, he can play Prince.
He's doing a cover.
Or he's
Right.
wearing a crown. Mm-hmm.
Hey, Chris, remember when we had James Vowles, and he was like, he was live when he was asking questions. He goes, how does this work, Chris? You mean you're standing here with the iPhone connected to the internet, connected to
The leg bone.
the SiriusXM, talking to North America? All right, here, coming back.
Yeah,
Yes.
I forgot that. I should have thrown that back in his face.
Yeah.
You should.
Hi, this is Mario Andretti, and this is Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Welcome back, Speed City. Is that Stevie Ray Vaughan? producer? Sounded like him just for a split second there.
Eric Johnson, I would say.
Yeah, a little Eric Johnson. I think it's probably just some stock music, but it had a nice feel.
Like
to
how I
it.
brought that Texan in, the other Texan.
Yeah, that's true. You did. Thank you, Mario Andretti, for bringing us back. Hey, Chris, I wonder if Mario is. I know that he's still a part of this new Cadillac.
He's going to drive for Cadillac?
They've run out of options.
He's the only one with a super license.
That's it. Only American with a super license.
He's got a posthumous
Chris,
one.
by the way, we got to play Jack Crawford. But have you seen any or heard anything about Mario?
So actually, I'm trying to remember who it was that mentioned that they have the ear of Mario. Who
I didn't know he'd lost
trying to
it.
get a drive there. No, I know, right?
What's this here?
Drive there, and they were kind of saying, "Here,
We sent them the ear to show them that we mean business.
Stop it.
Yeah, don't fall behind on your Ferrari power unit plate.
Yeah, I'll keep an ear out for him.
Derailed.
So, anyway, yes, big time. That's my fault. I should stay off air, shouldn't I? Because he's obviously very influential, but just so highly respected. Yeah, I think there's some. I'm honestly racking my brain for exactly who it was. I believe it was a driver manager or a driver advisor for some junior drivers. And just the fact that they could drop in, that they could chat to Mario quite regularly, they were very proud of. But they also think will be helpful because Mario will be involved in discussions. I don't think he's going to have a massive say on drivers, but I think he will give a good he'll be a good sounding board. Like he knows what it takes to just succeed in this sport, but in motorsport across categories, he knows what you need in every front. He still has his kind of head in the game in that sense.
Right.
Two ears or one, and I think he will. I think he will have a fair part to play in that, actually.
And like it or not, he'll be a Nicky Lauda stroke Helmut Marko figure in terms of he'll talk to the press, give his opinion. He's Mario Andretti. But at the same time, I think he'll also be a quiet confidant and helper, as he has been for Marko and many other drivers over the years, his son included. I think, he's, I mean, we all know Mario. And even if you're, if you're just a journalist like us, he's got time for everybody. And he talks honestly. And I think for a young driver and a young team, trying to find their way, I think he'll be great.
He's a smart guy, too. We had him on our South by Southwest panel a couple of years ago, and he's a sharp guy, and he also, doesn't take any guff or anything. He's just he's a doyen of our sport.
He really is.
Yeah. So, hey, speaking of team managers, what about Bortoleto crashing into his team manager? Almost.
That's not a good move, is it?
I was going to bring that up. Wouldn't that have been ironic?
Yeah,
that would have been
when Alonso tried to pass him.
Yeah. Did they touch?
No, I don't think he saw. I think what happened is that Bortoleto saw one car and said, "Okay, now I can come over," and then didn't see that. He was coming.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I spoke to both of them afterwards, and Gabriel said he had no idea, and he was just moving back to the racing line, and so he was spooked. He was like, I just didn't know. He said he had no tyres at that point anyway. It was all a struggle. He said he had no tyres to put on at the end of the race and just had to keep running and running. But that he was caught out. Fernando said he himself, though, feels he kind of made a slightly wrong decision because he went to the outside where you're kind of not going to be in the driver's eye line as they look to the inside and the apex. As Bortoleto was coming across right, he's not going to be looking right either. So he just said a bit of a misunderstanding, but it was close and could have gone very, very wrong. But that he just handed the place back when he ran wide at turn 2. And I thought, would you be this calm if you were not involved in managing this kid? Or would you be screaming at how dangerous someone had done it if it was someone you've got a rivalry with or had? Although admittedly, and I feel sad saying this, but Aston Martin this year are just going to be a bit nothing. And it just means brilliant characters like Alonso just don't have anything really to fight for or to have needle with anyone. So he said it's going to be a long, tough year, but in that sense, I hope there's something more fun for them to get stuck into next season.
Is there anything you can put your finger on? I mean, Bob's quite rightly pointed out the conversation we had with somebody at Aston Martin that the car, they haven't given Lance Stroll or Alonso a car good enough. But can you dig into that and say, well, what's wrong with it? Because they are going to be starting from scratch next year. They are going to get a new engine partner. What is wrong with the Aston Martin?
I think that they are yet to get to the point with their shiny new factory and all the new tools that anyone is understanding quite how to get the most out of them, but also get them all talking to each other properly. I think it's almost like too many cooks, and there's so many new people in new positions that it's just not settled down yet. And just, imagine sticking a load of ingredients into a bowl and a load of water and then whisking it for a bit and then leaving it, and you're watching it spin. You're doing that right now. And then I think it's going to settle, and they're like, oh, that's not mixed well enough, and I'll have to mix it again. But I do feel like if you think of someone designing something on CAD or doing even the Adrian Newey style of drawing the actual aerodynamic parts, then turning that into a digital design, but you're doing that on a whole new program. And what if you slightly don't get the translation from the first design until what's on the digital program? Then you've got to step out. Then you're putting that into a prototype model, which is a whole new model shop and a whole new set of prototyping tools that you're using to build it. And if they're not creating an identical replica of it for some reason, and look, the thing is, that is how it is up and down the pit lane. Like, no one has 100% perfection, but they learn.
Oh, we lost you, Chris.
And that was Speed City's first. On goes the Penny 4, and out comes the culinary reference. I mean, the man was on a fly then. He was absolutely, I mean, that was top drawer chef show stuff. Martha Stewart, here we go.
It was brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
He's
well,
he still shows connected.
I'm going to say, if that's the last time we ever hear from him, God, he was out on a high.
Right. Put another quarter in the machine.
Yeah, bring him back. He's got to stir his bloody cake.
He is back now. Chris, you left just as you were about to connect the culinary world to the Formula One world.
Yes, brilliantly.
Oh, well, that's such a shame because I carried on chatting for ages. It turned out someone was trying to phone me from Australia. I'm genuine, and I didn't know. I had my phone in my pocket, but I'm pretty sure that was an Australian radio station. They've texted me, and I haven't opened the message yet because we're busy, wanting to talk about Oscar Piastri.
You put them on to me, Chris. I'll deal with that. I'll negotiate that for you. Don't you worry, son.
That's your domain. But
you get on with the big work.
Too many cooks asked, I think, at the moment. Just they've got to work out where the weaknesses are. I likened it to the Red Bull wind tunnel situation where that did work for them because they understood where the weaknesses were with that wind tunnel. But now, with such sophisticated ground effect machinery, they've hit a point where those weaknesses actually catch them out. And that every team doesn't have a 100% perfect setup. They have something that's around 95 to 98%, but they understand where the weaknesses are and how they impact car design, car performance, and they can negate it. Aston Martin still have to work that out with everything new that they have.
Yeah, no, that's a good explanation because I just didn't, I haven't read anything or seen anything that has explained what they're dealing with specifically.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, are you still hovering? Well, let me rephrase that. That would imply you're levitating. Are you still hanging out near the Red Bull camp there?
He's standing by the oven.
That makes it sound like I'm just like chilling on the chair and having a drink. I'm slowly pacing around on their terrace outside here because I can see through the glass that Christain Horner is still holding court with the print media.
Do you think inside those hospitalities they're saying, "Has he gone yet? Has he gone yet? Is he still there?
Right.
Which one? The guy with the beard?"
Yeah. Tell them the print guys have all day. Come on, we're live.
Well, that's the problem is I straddle both sides of the fence, don't I? So I know what it's like when you're in there trying to get the print quotes too. And to be fair to them, what's good is the way they work as a pack. And it's not that anyone plans this, but because you're all there listening to the same questions, same answers, you actually cover a lot more and more in depth.
Yeah.
So I'll get him for 2 minutes on topics that he will have spoken about a number of times all day about this race. In there, he gets to speak for 10 minutes, and the first 2 are similar to what we'll do, but then the next 8 are more depth, more detail, that sort of thing. So it can be very, very productive, those sorts of chats, but they're still going at the moment.
Hey, I want to talk about Valentino Rossi.
On
the pole.
On the pole. Took the BMW in WEC to the pole.
Chris, did you see that? How cool is
that?
At
Imola, mind you. Of course, a track he knows
that's
very
true.
well.
He knows Imola.
Yeah. Very, very impressive.
I did not see that. That sounds very cool. No, I did not see that. I've thrown myself into the middle of hospitality at Red Bull to see if this will happen now. Which is going to cause chaos because they've got chocolates.
Now there's chaos.
Right, sorry guys, you're gonna lose me for the rest of the show. I'm stealing all the celebrations.
Yeah, no,
not easily distracted.
I'm taking.
Chris.
We got 2 minutes, had, 2.5 in the show.
Okay.
What's the chocolate of the day
seeing
at Red Bull?
The chocolate. I've got a Milky Way, a Mars, and a Snickers.
Oh, well,
but I'm watching.
The Americans will only know one of those.
Picture of turn one. We are live, everyone. Sorry for the final 90 seconds of our show. Christian, what are we looking at right now?
Turn one, mate.
Turn one. We're looking on board with Max Verstappen, and you say that he's ahead at this point at the apex of Oscar Piastri.
I think it's look. We're obviously trying to understand because it was so marginal from our point of view. If you look at a picture like that, then it shows that he's clearly ahead, but at the apex. Wasn't to be today. That 5 seconds was very costly in the end when we finished 2.6 behind.
Stewards did say it could be 10, but that there was mitigating factors being lap one, turn one. But with the pace that you showed,
pace was very encouraging. I mean, on the first stint we pulled away. Second stint we closed the gap to Oscar again. So yeah, I thought there was bar that first corner, there was a lot of positives to take out of the race.
And what more do you need to do to really be on that pace every race weekend, every track?
We know that there's areas of the car we need to improve, but I thought the whole team this weekend's done a very good job.
Okay, well I'll let you get off to debrief, and I'll steal a photo of that photo, and then everyone can see that on Twitter. It's a new version of show and tell, and yes,
that was sensational,
guys. Was for stealing a Milky Way. Which was, well, I'm just helping out. Nobody likes the Milky Way chocolates here.
I tell you what, it's reality TV, stroke radio, when he's getting done for stealing Milky Ways.
Hey, Chris, we're out of time. We got about 30 seconds, but he sounded a bit cranky.
He sounded definitely down.
Yeah, I think he believes that shouldn't have been a penalty and they'd have won the race. Looking at the photo they've got, so they feel hard done by. I don't agree. I don't think he was ever making that corner.
No,
but
that's what we said.
That's what happens when you work for a team. You have to have your team hat on.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks, Chris Medland, Jonathan Green, Bob Varsha, and thanks everybody for tuning in. And of course, our next F1 show is Miami, and we will be there. But next Sunday night, we'll have our Sunday Night with Speed City show. Thanks everybody. Talk to you then.